Namaste everyone, and welcome to another episode with me, Yasmin, for Musings of a Modern Day Mystic. And this modern day mystic has had life happen. It's been quite busy of late, so we're on a slightly deferred episode, and today I felt to talk about Know Thyself, and talking particularly about the body and about feelings. So I invite you to take a deep breath. Know that you're breathing as one with many, many people now, and settle into where you are and invite to just be here and be now while I ramble. So today I felt to really bring to light some of my recent experiences actually in learning the art of listening to the body, the feelings, being present to what is here and now. I hadn't realised actually how much of my life I was living through my mind and how much I'd come to rely on that, and how actually as children that's not the case. As children there's a much greater connection and awareness of what's going on in the body, and whether they understand that or not is to know when they're tired, they're hungry, they're upset, they're afraid, they're happy. Everything seems quite amplified in some ways, and then something turned that dial down, and that's what I'm becoming more and more aware of. When did I start to silence that? And I think it was partly through the education system and just this modern world that I've grown up in, where there was more and more technology. And I find personally when I use technology more, there's a bit of a disconnect from my body, from my feelings, and generally I'm absorbed in the screen, whether it's Netflix and some very immersive series, or my phone, even a book. They can take me beyond just this body, this minute, and coming back to myself is the real invite at the minute, the real learning curve. So what kind of brought this up for me was I'm starting to acknowledge some of the feelings, some of the experiences in the moment that might feel uncomfortable, challenging, things that I might want to procrastinate or avoid. And actually just sitting with them and going, why do I want to run away from this? Why do I keep myself so busy? Why have I enjoyed activities that kind of help me to not think about anything, not be aware of anything around me, and just fully zone into something else? So I used to register migraines all the time. When I was working, I used to have frequent migraines. My system would be regularly run down. And my answer to that was frustration. Why is my body not meeting me where I need it to be? Sometimes there was excuses. I could find any number of excuses. Well, you work with kids, you do this, you do that, to explain away, instead of actually stopping and going, why is this happening? Or what is this telling me? I never actually thought, why have I got this migraine? Is it because I've spent hours behind a computer screen? Is it because actually when I'm using the computer I often forget to drink, forget to eat, forget to go to the toilet because I'm so absorbed in that screen? I have actually started setting timers to help me remember these things. But there's also not knowing if I was thirsty or hungry or overheating, just basic things. I disconnected from that. I wasn't registering that. I saw migraine and I saw, frustration, let's take a tablet. So I was kind of taking the edge off, but I wasn't fully dealing with the root. And so at the minute I'm starting to acknowledge things and wonder at the root of that thing. Not that I need to fully understand everything, but to fully pull it up from the root and let it go. Fully allow it to be there, fully acknowledge in the first place that it's there. I have denied so many times, so many feelings in my body, in my mind. There's so many experiences I've had that have been so profoundly uncomfortable, distressing, having experienced an eating disorder, having had family and loved ones with health conditions, and the grief of the loss of someone, and all these things that can be quite hard to voice, quite challenging to express in words, to capture, to even want to venture to. Things that have been so uncomfortable that instead of feeling able to meet and acknowledge them, it was a desire to escape from them. Now, don't get me wrong, I still love reading to read. I'm aware, though, when that reading is turning to, I would like to escape from this world completely and immerse in a book, and I don't want that book to end. And if that book ends, let's find another book. I'm aware of patterns of where I might fully remove myself to kind of, it's like the kid that sits there and covers their hands over their eyes or their ears and hums, and that changes everything, right? They don't want to see it or hear it. They choose to tune it out. So I'm starting to learn to actually, it's safe, reminding myself it's safe, this is natural, and tuning in, feeling in, softening in to those feelings and wondering what it is, acknowledging it, voicing it. So, for example, anxiety. It's a common feeling that can arise in me, and yet it's one that until the last few weeks I hadn't really thought about how that presents in my body, how that relates to where the mind space is. I can tell when I've got a very active mind space, but that's not necessarily having noticed the pattern. Wait a minute, anxiety to me can be the mind in overdrive, trying to solve every potential worst case scenario, everything that might happen or might go on, trying to manage and control everything before it's even happened. And really being able to go, whoa, let's step back, let's breathe. Actually, dealing with the 1,000,001 scenarios that probably 99% of them aren't going to happen is not helpful. But being able to see it, to remove myself from it and just witness it, observe it, it means knowing that it's going on in the first place. And I'm still getting pulled into it at times. The shift for me is in going, and that's okay because I'm learning. I'm starting to look out for it and go, haha, half an hour down the line I can go, yeah, that happened. But what can I do differently next time? Whether it's to twist a bracelet on my wrist when I notice the mind's racing, or to even notice how anxiety might be presenting in the body. And this goes for any feeling, whether it's fear, frustration, anger, sadness, grief, loneliness. Instead of wanting to, do you know the amount of times I felt ashamed of my emotions, ashamed of the way that they express and the way that they can be received as well. A lot of the time tears come for me. Whether it's tears of frustration, tears of joy, tears of sadness, tears of frustration. Often emotions for me involve tears, and the amount of times I've pushed that down and berated myself after the event because, wait a minute, it's not professional to cry at work, to cry in front of your colleagues. It's not the appropriate moment to cry in front of someone that actually they've just given you some really hard news for themselves. This isn't about me. Why are you crying? Questioning all of these things that are going on for me that I'm actually not consciously creating, it's happening, and learning to come to a greater acknowledgement and acceptance of that. Oh, wait a minute, this is this feeling. My heart's racing, my pulse is high, my hands are clammy, my stomach's dropped. Just noticing these body sensations and linking it to, wait a minute, what thoughts am I having? What feelings are going on for me at the minute? And I started to realise that actually my feelings, body sensations, migraines, and even trains of thought. Have you ever noticed that if a kid wants some sweets, or they want to tell you something, they're desperate to tell you something, they've seen something, or they want something from the shops, and every time you silence them, in a minute, what do? Generally, naturally, I don't know about you, but in my experience, they talk louder, they shout They shout out. They sometimes physically shake your body. You know, they're grabbing your arm and they're trying to get your attention and they're trying to get you to look at them, and sometimes behaving out. And starting to realise, actually, maybe these feelings, these sensations that are going on inside me that haven't been acknowledged, that have been unseen, that have been silenced, muted, oh yeah, I will get to you another time. They get louder and louder because they're still there ultimately. And they wouldn't be coming to the surface if there wasn't a reason for it. And I don't need to get caught up in them. I don't need to create a story around them. And that has been so freeing. There's times I will still get locked in a story of feeling sorry for myself or frustrated or self-talk. And instead going, wait a minute. In 2 minutes time after I've cried, I'm going to be done. It's going to be fine. Sometimes I feel empty after crying. Sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, we're done. But the more I try and hold it in or judge it, or wish it was otherwise, that kind of amplifies it almost. So I'm starting to realise in myself, acknowledging myself, right, okay, what are these thoughts that are going on? What are these feelings? What are these patterns? Whether it's, oh, wait a minute, I've noticed that I feel really bleh after this activity, that actually that's my body saying it's tired, or it's this, or it's that. Instead, the amount of things that I wasn't even registering, because it's like, wait a minute, this thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Don't know about anyone else, but this world can create such an energy of do, go, that I didn't really have much time to stop, to process, reflect on just my experiences, on retuning into me. Because I would have been fluent in this language of feelings to some degree, body sensations, when I was growing up. And yet the older I've got and the more I've grown in a world of technology and a very, very fast pace, a world where anything is possible at the click of your fingers. You can log on, you can Google anything, you can instantaneously, you can order that thing that's just popped into your head. And instead to start and bring my awareness back to myself and to start to hold space for these aspects of myself, these experiences that I hadn't been acknowledging or realising. Some of them I had been oblivious to. You know, I'd see the symptoms when I was on my behind in bed. Oh, wait a minute, my immune system's low. I've caught 3 things in the last 2 weeks. Instead of realising earlier on, oh, wait a minute, look at the pace. When did you last rest? How many hours sleep did you have last week? Instead of going, right, I've got the gym to go to, and I've got this, and I've got this, I had a schedule. And so instead of listening to the body, to my feelings, to the frequent outbursts of tears, or whatever it happened to be, I was living from a mind space and from a structure and from a plan, and often to please other people, to meet commitments, many of which I'd made and not fully consciously considered before I'd made them. And then there'd be tears, there'd be resentment, there'd be anger, all these things bubbling up, just as messages, wait a minute, you're giving too much of yourself. You've not rested enough. And instead, just going through these highs and lows, these seesaws of feeling okay, let's nail work, let's nail gym, oh, we're back here. And it would be this seesaw, this bouncing up and going down, and it was almost predictable. What goes up comes down, right? And now I'm starting to go, wait a minute, maybe I don't need this. I'm starting to look for that middle way. The Buddha talked of the middle way. I'm starting to realise the wisdom. I don't want the drama anymore. I don't need to prove and push myself gung-ho in at the gym and have big muscles or massive goals. Actually, my goals can be more steady. Maybe just living and breathing and feeling okay in myself is a wonderful goal and aim to have in mind and heart, instead of how big a weight can I meet this week on the barbell, or how far can I cycle, how long is it going to take me to reach this and this. So many outward and big goals, and instead going, what's the point of all of this? What's really important? What's really valuable and worth knowing? I used to read articles and involve myself in current affairs and news, and I've got a lot of world awareness on many levels, and yet I'm finding so much richness now. You know, the Lao Tzu once said, to know thyself, to master thyself. That is the epitome of being a master. Concerning myself with the world out there, trying to be an expert on the world out there, it was constantly changing. It was out of my control, and it wasn't always mine to do. But one thing that is a guarantee in this world is that this body is going to be with me day in, day out, as long as I'm breathing and this heart is beating. This mind space, this heart, these feelings, these are things that are going to be with me for the rest of my life. So how can I start to befriend them? How can I start to cultivate the community that I'm wanting outside within me? To meet those aspects of the self, those feelings and sensations I've pushed down and not wanted. And going, what are you here to tell me? To teach me? Often. I don't know about you. If you ever have a friend and they've had a day and a half at work and they just go blah. A lot of the time, I don't know about you, but I find people, once they've blah, they're done. Often they don't want advice from me. Sometimes I'll offer it. Sometimes there's questions, but a lot of the time people seem to feel better for just having got it out the system. And we say that, don't they? I just needed to get that out my system. Oh my goodness. Just witnessing it is enough. Just acknowledging it is enough. Nothing to fix, nothing to change. Quashing it down, hiding it away isn't working for me. It's not changing things, and often things can compound. And it's not always comfortable. But if these feelings, if these experiences, if I'm going to experience at some points in my life, there will be moments of grief, of loss, of change, of surprising news, of potentially situations that might trigger anxiety or fear or anger. Learning the language of how that expresses in me, how that's felt in me, how my body feels when I'm angry, and how it might help me to express that in a healthy way, to manage that in the moment, to recognize it before I react, before I push it down and it builds up until there's a sock on the floor and all of a sudden the roof just blew off because the camel's back just broke. Instead going, let's start to recognize these in the moments, and maybe that's going to be the journey of a lifetime, which is fine. I've got one. It's amazed me how I used to concern myself so much with the world out there without realising there was so much richness within, and it's balance. I still experience so much beauty and challenge and growth being out in the world, supporting other people through my work, just going to the shops, wishing people a great day, offering to help people with things, just the general day-to-day stuff. But giving myself time, especially as the leaves are falling and nature is starting to turn in on itself, the trees, the energy is going to go more and more to the roots, to kind of their foundation. It feels like this winter is an invite to me. Oh, let's start to turn that gaze inward. And let's start to have a bit of self-compassion and self-love to accompany this self-awareness. Because I've been on self-aware, journaling, working, I don't like the term working on myself, just Because it became a job, and it became a chore, and it became that I'm going to heal and fix, and I was always finding something else to fix or find, because if you look for a problem, guess what? A lot of the time I'll find one. And instead going, oh, wait a minute, maybe there's nothing to fix. Maybe there's nothing to change. Maybe it's just a case of being differently with my feelings and life's experiences and the sensations that rip through this body. I still experience strong symptoms from things like IBS or migraine or whatever it may be. And they're not always comfortable, and there's times where I'll eat a meal and go, oh, you just did that, you knew that food could do that, or you knew that drink could do that. And then I just completely, it'd be nice if I could go to sleep, wake up and it's done. Take a tablet and it's done, And instead going, we made a mistake. This discomfort means I'm not likely to make it again anytime soon. Okay, we've learned. And having greater self-compassion with myself to change that mental landscape, the self-talk, and to go, hey, thanks, body. Actually, you're giving me a message for a reason. If you're rejecting that food, clearly there's something going on for you, and me and you both want the same thing. We want to be healthy, we want to be happy. So, thanks for the strong message. Maybe we need to avoid that or have less of that in future. How do we find the balance? How do we grow forward together? And so, I'm learning to befriend, acknowledge, voice different aspects of myself. And it's really made me realise how far away from myself I had gone. My awareness, my mind, my consciousness, my focus was completely outward. On the news, on the world, on things that are none of my business. And that comes back to Steffi Elaine, a long-term wonderful member of our communities, soul sister, guide, love you. And it really has seeped in, thankfully. She's told me enough times what other people think, what other people do. Out there, none of your business. You go, you meet it, but focus on this, on yourself, on the heart, on expressing and being the love that you are. And all of a sudden, I don't need to get into those debates and to concern myself with matters that don't touch me, that are none of my concern. And that doesn't mean I'm not compassionate. That doesn't mean I'm not aware of what's going on in the world. That doesn't mean I don't care. It means that I'm not going to let what's going on out there change who I am and how I present in this world. To a lot of the time, a lot of the stuff I was engaging with out there could trigger in me low mood, depression, anger, frustration. I could start to play into dramas. And instead it's easier to go, none of my business, let's stay in my lane. I intend to come from a place of love every day. There's a human level that, there's imperfection in this world, and that's okay. I learn, I grow every day. There's something to learn from, grow from, give thanks for, reflect on. And so this is a musing and a reflection on reconnecting with knowing myself. And there's so many different aspects and colours and shades to that. And relearning languages I had forgotten. The language of the feelings that ripple through me. The meaning of hot, angry tears differentiated from tears of loneliness or tiredness. Listening to my temples are throbbing, or my guts, they've not been right for the last couple of days. Oh, wait a minute. That was going on then. Maybe I feel anxious, maybe I feel stressed, and I've not even acknowledged how that's affecting my being. And how can I support myself through that? And so, I turn this back to you. And I invite you to just sit with, if you feel to, how does, and then name the strongest emotion the most random emotion, the first emotion that comes in your head. How does this feeling, how do I experience that in my body? What's my mental landscape usually like around then? What thoughts do I tend to have? How does it feed a cycle? And how might I begin to break that cycle if it's not something that's helping me? Earlier and earlier, recognizing earlier and earlier the signals before they become big red flashing lights that scream and shout like a fire alarm. Instead, just a little, hey, you might want to note this, an advisory. Those warning lights on the car that come up a less troubling colour than red. And just, meeting it at its origin and its source and letting it be and go. So, this is me, Amy Yasmin, having mused and rambled on the language of the body, of feelings, of needs even, and starting to notice and turn that gaze inward. So let me know in the comments section if this has stimulated any thoughts, reflections, anything to journey on and grow through and with as a community. Any themes that you might be interested in or musing on yourselves and your own lives, because I've noticed more and more that the things that are going on for me, generally there can be a collective theme or thread. The more I notice things like Lee Harris and astrology, and it's fascinated me to see, wait a minute, I'm going through this challenge, and even though it looks different in other people's lives, this is something that's touching them too, or has touched them, or may one day touch them. Everyone's got a story to tell, so feel free to share any stories of growth, challenge, inspiration that may help someone else to see things from a different perspective, to learn and grow from and with each other, that we always have done, through story, through community, through tribe. So, I invite you to take another nice deep breath. Just notice how your body feels in this moment. Is there any messages for you now? I'm smiling, my body's happy. I've rested after a busier morning at work. So, noticing and listening and gifting yourself in whatever way you can, whether it's just a breath, 5-minute cup of tea, just a couple of minutes quietly before walking back into the house, whatever it may be, to hear the feelings, to acknowledge them, and to meet yourself where you're at, with self-love, patience and compassion. This is Amy Yasmin, and I will see you soon. Take good care. Namaste.